How satisfied are you overall with our products or services? And can you please explain your answer? These two questions are part of virtually every customer experience study in the market. And they are also used to measure touchpoint-based customer feedback and loyalty. So there is so much potential to use AI to optimize the research processes in these customer experience and customer understanding projects that my colleagues Frank, Stefan and me agreed to make this session in order to share some insights on what can be done to optimize customer experience and customer satisfaction research based on AI algorithms. And we're going to share what we have done in the past, the learnings that we've made, and also what we've successfully implemented in business practice. This is where we start. This is the traditional approach of measuring customer experience. And apart from these two questions that I already showed in the beginning, the typical analysis for this is to calculate the KPI score, for example, the NPS, to have the open-ended feedback coded and run frequencies for that, and to do simple statistical analysis in order to find correlation between the aspects and the KPI. And we're going to challenge this approach today because based on our professional experience, we are convinced that AI can help to not only reduce costs and time for these projects, but also to deliver a higher insights quality in an easy way. And this is what we're going to focus on now. The first option of implementing AI into this process is to have the text-based question replaced by a speech-to-text question. And first insights already reveal that the insights quality from this can be raised because people with smart devices will tend to give more feedback if they can speak it into their smart device instead of having to type in the text. Now, this is something that we only touch a little bit in this session because in Switzerland it gets a little bit complicated with the dialects, and AI is not really capable yet of doing speech-to-text solution in a high quality. But this is already a first lever that you have and that you can use to optimize these surveys. The first application of AI to this research process that we're going to talk a little bit more about is natural language processing or text analytics. So the possibility to have the open-ended text feedback coded either automatically or semi-automatically. And in the past 2 years basically, we tested virtually all the solutions out there in the market for performance. And on the chart you can see the average outcome. If you compare the output that these tools give you, and if you calculate an analysis that tries to explain the KPI variable by this output, then you can on this chart see the different explanatory powers of these approaches. So first of all, unsupervised learning. This means that the machine works for itself and tries to identify the most important codes by itself in the test data set. This doesn't really perform very well. It's very efficient because you don't need humans to do coding work, to do any coding work, but it's not really good in terms of quality. The most important items are being found, the most important topics are being selected, but it's not very precise when it comes to details. So the average explanatory power is not good enough. When it comes to supervised learning solutions, such as in R and Python, the explanatory power is better because humans train the machine in the beginning, and then the machine is using this pre-trained knowledge in order to code actual data sets, but it still doesn't match manual coding. And if we want to have a robust data set and we want to understand why customers act the way they do, we must have at least the explanation power of human coding. And what we also did is to test the very specialized coding platform of Kaplana, which works based on unsupervised pre-training to get a general language understanding of the entire system, and then do project-specific trainings by human coders in order to train a specific algorithm and to specifically develop a model that is used for the coding work later on. And this approach, combined with 3 advantages compared to human coding, lead to the fact that this even outperforms human coding in some studies. And the 3 advantages are that the Kaplana platform is producing likelihood scores for the codes instead of binary codes. So this is something that the machine can do much better than humans can do. Also, it produces sentiments, which is a sentiment variable, which is very precise and can be used for modeling and predicting the KPI. And thirdly, it uses transfer learning from similar studies. So you don't always have to start from scratch. If there's already certain pre-knowledge existing in the machines, it can be used. And overall, this solution performs best in our projects and is thus recommendable to be used in business practice. So the coding is completed efficiently with supervised learning. And the good thing is that we can even more benefit from this supervised learning coding solution, because we can solve a problem which is coherent in almost any customer experience study. Because most of the time, or in many cases, customer feedback is too unspecific. It is too vague. It's not being useful for companies to take action. I give you 3 examples. The prices are too high, the customer service is bad, the product quality is bad. This is vague, unspecific. And this is not really useful for taking action. But what we can do is we can take these answers, send them over via API, have them coded live while the interview is running, have the answers sent back, and as soon as the answers are there, you can trigger a mini dialogue, a simple chatbot solution basically, in which you can pose further questions in order to get more detail on the aspects that are crucial. For example, if somebody's mentioning, as you can see here, the product quality is bad, you might ask, could you please give us one example of where you experienced that the product quality is bad? Or if someone says the customer service is unfriendly or bad, you could say, okay, could you tell us one event in which you experienced that, or could you give us more precise feedback on that? And this helps companies to understand better what customers are arguing about. This helps to make an action plan, and this, from our test studies, is leading to about twice the insights depth that you can get out of this open-ended questions that shall explain the KPI at the end. Now, the third approach, which also includes AI, that we're going to go in detail about, is the causal analysis. So it's an essential part of customer understanding projects to understand what is driving customer behavior and how loyalty or the NPS or customer satisfaction can be increased. And as I mentioned in the beginning, traditionally there were regression analyses and correlation analyses that were carried out, and sincerely there's no justification to continue with these methodologies anymore because they are out of date. Okay, there are 3 problems about bringing machine learning into causal analysis. First, generalizability. Often the models that are being trained, they work well within a predefined training environment, but if you bring them out to real life, they start to fail. They start to become less accurate. This is a problem you need to take care about. Secondly, is the explainability. It does not make any use to build a deep neural network which works extremely well in prediction, but nobody understands what the model is exactly doing or what its decisions are based on. This does not make any sense because you cannot draw any business conclusions from that. Thirdly, cause and effect connections. What happens if something changes about the environment that, changes the whole causal relation? What happens if any prerequisite and parameters are changing? This is something where machine learning and pattern recognition cannot help. And this is something where a researcher, a statistician, or an analyst has to pay severe attention so that the right conclusions are being drawn. If you are interested more about these facts, please go check out the white paper here. I strongly recommend you read it if you're interested in causal analysis and machine learning. For causal analysis, we typically use Newsrel. Newsrel is a technique which is based on universal structure modeling, which has the benefit that you can include latent variables in your causal system. So you can consider them either as an input or an intermediary variable, even though they may be not part of your data set. And secondly, the big advantage is that Newsrel uses Bayesian neural networks to quantify the connections between variables. And this means that overfitting is prevented because the algorithms maximize the fit whilst minimizing the complexity of the connections at the same time. This means that the output will provide you with something you can actually understand and interpret. So far, in our test studies, the Newsrel approach has always outperformed traditional regression analysis. And the typical factor you can consider if you apply Newsrel is a factor of 1.5 to 2, higher explanatory power than traditional analysis. This means that the customer understanding, the understanding of the behavior and of the drivers that motivate people to buy and not to buy things is much better and much more solid with this technique. And besides the fact that overfitting is prevented, there are also several other advantages. For example, you can unveil unexpected nonlinear relationships. And this is very useful for business practice. Let's summarize. Today's session showed 4 ways of implementing AI in traditional customer experience projects. And it also showed how, based on our professional experience, this can be done in a high quality way. So, number 1, use speech-to-text questions instead of text-based questions seamlessly. Number 2, use supervised learning solutions or build a supervised learning solution to code feedback, the open-ended feedback from our clients. Number 3, make use of this machine then, make use of this pre-trained model in order to have a live chatbot running to get more qualitative in-depth insights from the customers on the most important business aspects. Very important. And number 4, use machine learning based causal analysis in order to get a solid and valid understanding of the drivers and barriers of customer behavior. This will lead to reduced costs and time for projects, and this will also help you to get a much higher insights quality out of your customer experience. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope we meet sometimes in the future. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. Thank you. Bye-bye.